This is NBC Palm Springs. Breaking news.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gino Lamont.
And I'm Sarah Sanchez. We begin tonight with that breaking news out of Indio. A fire, a tamarisk tree fire in near Shadow Hills High School. This is a picture sent in by a viewer. Right now, the fire isn't threatening the school, but fire crews are on the scene. And we do have a crew on the way. We'll get a live look in just a moment. Again, a fire is burning near Shadow Hills High School in Indio. Several tamarisk trees are on fire. You may have seen the smoke this evening. So far, no threat to school property.
And school may be back in session sooner than we thought. Starting Monday, Riverside County schools can apply for a waiver to hold in-person classes. Now, waivers can only be approved for grades ranging from transitional kindergarten through 6th grade. Riverside County Health Officer Dr. Cameron Kaiser says our case rate has dropped enough to where we can now start to consider elementary school waivers. We asked Dr. Kaiser to talk about schools reopening, and here's what he had to say.
The problem is, of course, is that with our schools being closed for so long, we don't know what we don't know. And I want all of our schools to be very well prepared so that we make as few mistakes as possible.
Dr. Kaiser says the approval process for these waivers is not going to be easy. School must demonstrate they have pieces in place to operate safely. And with many families in the far eastern Coachella Valley still struggling with connectivity issues in the second week of remote learning, CVUSD has had to get creative, so they've turned to their fleet of school buses. Buses are being used as internet hotspots, and families tell us it's still not enough. Regina Urita joins us now with more. Regina.
Gino, Salton City and North Shore families who have limited internet access are currently getting help with Wi-Fi buses from CVUSD. But with more families in the neighborhood using the same service, parents are starting to search for even more alternatives.
The first day was a fail.
Isabela Gomez is in her second week of first grade. She's trying to complete her assignments, but the Wi-Fi just isn't cutting it.
Yeah, sometimes it's slow.
Her family has a Wi-Fi hotspot from the district, but the connection isn't fast enough. They've also tried to use one of the district's Wi-Fi buses, but with so many families using them at once, the connection keeps crashing. There's a huge technology gap in rural communities. In North Shore, about 64% of households have reliable internet access.
The internet is a big problem here because not a lot of families have access to good internet.
Coachella Valley Unified School District says they're working on getting more hotspots.
A little over 3,000 hotspots. There are 1,500 more for those families that still need some type of connectivity. And so those should be here shortly.
As for the roving Wi-Fi buses, those are temporary and they're only going to the Salton Sea area. Even though, according to the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership, cities in Thermal and Oasis have fewer families with reliable internet connections.
Usually it takes long to log in to see my teacher, and sometimes it logs me out.
Families also tell me the Wi-Fi buses are only there for a few hours, and that's not enough time to finish all the homework and assignments. For NBC Palm Springs, I'm Regina Urita.
Now let's get to that breaking news near Shadow Hills. That's not the fire that we're following right now.
The fires are generating so much smoke in the Bay Area that air quality alerts are being issued. The Bay Area officially has the worst air quality in the world. Earlier this week, Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency so he could ask for outside assistance. The Palm Springs Fire Department is among the agencies that have answered the call, sending a battalion chief to help coordinate fire crews and equipment. The fire there has claimed at least 5 lives, and the number of homes lost is unknown. And this is far from over. And as firefighters face weeks of work ahead of them, possibly even months, what we have also discovered, farm workers are busy working in the shadows of those fires, working in the heat and trying to harvest those crops by hand to help feed America. We wanted to focus on these essential workers, and Nico Payne brings us their story.
So now we're talking about one disaster on top of another disaster.
Farm workers have never stopped working throughout the coronavirus pandemic, and now California is facing a fight on 3 fronts: a pandemic, extreme heat, and out-of-control wildfires.
When we're talking about the California wildfires, so we know farm workers are letting us know that the air quality is very bad. It's difficult to breathe. Some are unsure about what their rights are.
This video posted on Instagram went viral. It offers just a glimpse at what they're facing.
Some of that air coming through from the recent fires here in our county as well. And we've had some farm workers hospitalized.
Many of these workers are immigrants who have trouble getting health insurance. We spoke to a local farm worker. She only gave us her first name to protect her identity. She has pre-existing conditions that make this work especially hard.
It's not easy. It's a really difficult job. I have asthma, so it was a little bit more difficult for me to breathe.
Mariana gets a break from the harsh sun for now.
Right now we're doing a night shift. We're planting bell peppers. So it's from 6 p.m. till 3 a.m. in the morning.
Adding to her challenges, her children are home all day because of the pandemic.
It's really difficult having our kids home, struggling a lot to help them out with their iPad.
Gallegos stresses that extreme events like the heat wave, the fires, and the pandemic are underscoring the systemic issues.
These conditions have always been there. Right now, COVID is shedding light on a lot of issues and challenges our community has faced for years and years.
Nico Payne, NBC Palm Springs.
All right, taking a live look outside right now. Air quality is not good throughout California. It's not great here, but it's especially bad, as you can imagine, in the area where the brush fires are burning. Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett standing by with a check of that. Hey, Mike.
Gino, air quality is a major issue all the way across the state. I'll show you the watches and warnings in a moment. We saw that live look from our Agua Caliente casino cam. The good-ish news for us is that most of what you're looking at there is humidity, just trapped in the mouth of the valley there. As we look towards Northern California, this is a shot from Mount Diablo in Contra Costa County, arguably one of the more beautiful views that you will see in Northern California. But today, smoke all the way across the horizon there. Seen a little bit of marine layer cloud cover off towards the distance there, but it really exemplifies what's happening in both Northern and Central California. Watches and warnings aplenty. In fact, I've just highlighted a couple of them here. There's an air quality alert for basically the entire central portion of the valley in California here. Very low air quality as that is dense smoke there. By the way, there is a dense smoke advisory off towards the north and east of where the fires are burning because the high pressure is pulling all of that smoke into Nevada and even into parts of Utah, making it very difficult to breathe there. And on top of that, a fire weather watch has been posted for Northern California, basically from San Jose all the way up to the Oregon border, because we are tracking the remnants of Genevieve. Remember, Genevieve was a powerful hurricane right off the tip of Cabo about 24 hours ago. The good news is it's disintegrating. The bad news is that it continues to move up the coast here and brought us that cloud cover today that increased our humidity. But as it moves along North and Central California, could spark some storms that could fire off some dry lightning this weekend. So to add insult to injury, on top of the 300 plus fires that we're actively tracking right now, there could be more on Saturday and on Sunday. It's a very dangerous situation we're going to stay on top of. Meanwhile, taking a look closer to home, radar, I've put it on a 3-hour loop so you can see some of those storms that fired up in the mountains. Some heavy rain and some hail fell in Idlewild earlier this afternoon. Good news is all of those have matured, and anything that is still out there is being blown off towards the north and west as we speak. Not expecting any rain in the Coachella Valley tonight. Here's what we got going on, though. We are warm and we are humid. Look at this, 103 degrees with 38% humidity. Just an hour ago, we were in the low 40s. So even though this number is low, the feels like temperature is just hot out there. We're basically baking. Easterly flow will switch around to the northwest a little bit later this evening and give us some ventilation at about 15 to 20 miles an hour. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air. Look great on paper. 106, 108. Are you kidding me? That's way better than it's been. But with the increased humidity, it's still going to feel muggy out there, and you'll see plenty of cloud cover. Tracking some changes next week that will bring some better conditions, but it's a little bit of a mixed bag. We'll take a look coming up.
Finally, now to that breaking news in India, where several tamarisk trees are burning. You may see or smell the smoke just depending on where you live in our valley. We're going to send things over now to Nico Payne, who's on the scene and has some details for us. Nico.
That's right. We're just off of Monroe and Avenue 42, and you can see the scene behind me. There are crews out here fighting this, what appears to be a tamarisk fire. Now, it could be a homeless encampment fire, but we haven't been able to talk to fire officials to confirm that information. But I was able to talk briefly to some police officials who explained to me that this happened probably around 4:30 this afternoon. Many trucks rather have come to the scene to help fight this fire, and also a cooling center has been requested, and that was sent out to help relieve firefighters during this fire. The cooling center is the sun bus you see right there. But again, many firefighters out here fighting this tamarisk fire. I have yet to talk to fire officials, but I'll be sure to get more information and bring those to you as we get them. Reporting live, I'm Nico Payne. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Nico, thank you for that update. Well, changes are coming to Palm Springs. The main drive through the heart of downtown is about to take on a new look and a new purpose in the wake of this pandemic. Our Olivia Sandusky live in downtown Palm Springs, where Palm Canyon Drive will become something of a promenade. Olivia?
Gino, the area where we're here right now in Palm Canyon, in between Tockwitz, all the way down to Barista Road, is going to look a little different. In just about 2 weeks, you're going to see restaurants here along the roadway because the city is going to close it off to vehicle traffic. And I spoke to some restaurant owners today who told me they are welcoming the change.
Staff at Revel Public House sets up their extended patio for the day. The restaurant's owner says she's excited the city is allowing her business to expand into Palm Canyon.
It's the best thing to do right now, just to keep people farther apart. To give restaurants a little bit more room to spread out.
The closure will allow restaurants to serve customers on parts of the roadway, leaving room only for emergency vehicles to pass through. But with more space comes added cost and labor.
It is going to be a major expense, probably, between $5,000 and $10,000.
We're going to have more of our employees coming back, which will make them so pleased.
After hearing the challenges restaurants may face, Mayor Kors says the city will help businesses financially with the move.
We'll cover the cost of the K-rails, the barriers that are needed to close streets, and if we need to close lanes or help businesses with parklets, we'll cover those costs of those barriers. We also tell businesses that want to do nicer parklets, if they invest in their own parklet, which could be raised and using parking spots, they can keep it up for at least a year.
Some restaurants outside of the Tockwitz to Barista boundaries say they support the city's plan, but are okay with not taking part.
It's extra labor, taking it in, taking it out. I don't have the extra people or the money to put the stuff in and out. But we got to try everything possible to keep our economy going.
And Mayor Kors says the city's goal is to support those businesses who aren't part of the Palm Canyon closure as well.
We want to help businesses everywhere in the city. So the parklets, being able to use part of your parking lot, using street parking, using parks of sidewalks, that's good everywhere in the city.
Mayor Kors also told me one area he wants to focus on is retail all along, the city of Palm Springs, especially here in this closed off area. He wants to be able to offer them possibly an option to go onto the sidewalk as well. He says that will come in the next few weeks as well. Reporting live in Palm Springs, I'm Olivia Sandusky.
All right, thank you, Olivia. Local nursing students are upset their nursing school program has been shut down. We're going to hear from those students, and we'll give you the school's response.
After nearly 4 decades, finally, victims are getting justice in the mystery and horror of the Golden State Killer. We'll have more still ahead. Nursing students are making a lot of noise in order for their message to be heard, and that message is they need to graduate because they want to work on the front lines of the pandemic. Our Katie Alvarado has their story.
Keep our nursing school open! Nursing students and their allies gathered outside College of the Desert.
COD shut us down!
They're protesting the college canceling the semester's clinical courses needed for them to graduate.
They are 3 months away from the finish line, and this is a hard blow for many students.
Because of the pandemic, nursing programs across the state postponed clinical training.
The problem with nursing schools closing, it doesn't just affect nursing students, it affects the world, really.
While the decision is made to protect students, many worry this decision will put more lives at risk. A recent study determined our country needs 1 million more nurses in the next few years to keep up with retirements, or we'll have a critical shortage by 2030. The state that's number 1 on the list with the most severe shortage looming, California. This healthcare worker, who does not want to be identified, says the timing on this is wrong.
In the middle of a pandemic, when we are out there exhausted, many of these students have jobs waiting for them.
We reached out to College of the Desert. Their spokesperson tells us when the crisis first started, emergency exemptions were made by the Board of Registered Nurses that allowed them to offer clinical training through online simulations. But now that those exemptions have expired, they're forced to postpone fall courses.
And it's so disheartening to see that in the middle of a pandemic, student nurses have to fight to finish their calling.
In Palm Desert,
God bless nursing!
Kitty Alvarado, NBC Palm Springs.
And we reached out to College of the Desert. Their spokesperson tells us when the crisis first started, emergency exemptions were made by the Board of Registered Nurses, which allowed them to offer clinical training through online simulations. But now those exemptions have expired and they're forced to postpone those courses.
Yeah, that's hail in Idlewild sent in to us by our friend Michael Thomas. It came down hard and fast this afternoon, part of that unpredictability in summer weather, especially in our local mountains. Now, it's been muggy, bordering on stifling, so let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett, who we blame for all things weather-related. Michael.
Gino, I'll take the blame because people also thank me when it's nice out as well. Tracking a gorgeous sunset out there, and those storms that we were tracking over the mountains have all wound down for the day, but there is the potential for more this weekend. That's just one of many things we'll be discussing when we come back. Welcome back. Here's a live look. This is the one that we like to show this time of day. It is our 111 cam. Wow, not a whole lot of traffic going on out there. There is most certainly a whole lot going on in the atmosphere. Once again, you could cut that air with a knife today. It is extremely humid out there. We've been riding in the upper 30s and lower 40s as far as humidity goes. It's monsoon season. It's to be expected. It's just been so long since we've had anything even remotely close to dry air, which brings me to my next point. 32 days until the first day of fall. Now, I know that the first day of fall is not a magic day when suddenly everything is all better. We can continue to stay warm into September and October, but at least it gives us something to look forward to. I promise I'm not going to do this every day, but yeah, we've got something on the horizon that will make this seem much better. Take a look at the big picture. This is Genevieve, no longer a hurricane, post-tropical low, but here's what's rough about this is you notice that today, that mid and upper level cloud cover over top of Southern California, keeping us warm and moist today. Well, Genevieve is going to continue to walk up the coast here. Not a lot of moisture associated with it, and that's one of the problems. Could spark off some dry storms in northern and central California this weekend. So on top of all of the issues that they've got going on there, fire weather watch is in place basically from the Bay Area all the way up to the Northern California, Oregon border there. Something we'll keep a close eye on. Also keeping a close eye on the tropics. I'll have some updates for you coming up tonight at 11 on that. Here's what we saw today. Gina was showing you that hail that fell up in Idlewild earlier this afternoon. That has all now rained itself out, and anything that is remnant is being pushed off towards the north and west. No chances of seeing some showers coming into the Coachella Valley tonight. Got a pretty decent storm cell off towards our north and east. That will not be an issue for us. Putting Futurecast into motion, I just want to give you a heads up. There is still moisture in the atmosphere, so as we go overnight into Saturday morning, we'll see some storms firing off mostly towards the San Bernardinos and San Gabriels. We fast forward into the afternoon, and some of that moisture will try and walk up along the mountains there. So even though it's not being picked up, you will see some cumulus and the potential for some afternoon storms there. Just be aware of that. Looks like Sunday will be a little bit drier as far as rain potential goes, but as far as humidity goes, wow. Saturday, a 75-degree dew point. That's about 40% humidity, similar to what we saw today. Slightly drier on Sunday, but still really uncomfortable. Monday and Tuesday, we start to trend a little bit lower. In fact, it looks like by the time we get to Wednesday, we could finally be shutting this down and seeing some drier air moving in just in time for temperatures to move up. I'll show you that in a moment. 103 today looks good on paper, but when you put that humidity and dew point into it, it was not a comfortable day out there. 117 is the record set back in the summer of love. 88 in the overnight hours kept us warm in the early morning too. Here's what's going on. We no longer have that excessive heat warning in place that we had since last Friday. That expired for us last night. But up in the high desert and the Inland Empire, they'll still ride in the 100 to 106 range this weekend. They're going to be humid as well. We also have a excessive heat watch down towards Imperial County. They could be pushing 111 this weekend. 86 currently in Yucca Valley, 73 up at Big Bear looks good, 99 in Coachella, currently 83 in Idlewild under that rain-cooled air. Still have that easterly flow coming in. It will switch to the north and northwest tonight. Give us a breeze. It won't be particularly gusty, but we'll take anything we can get. Temperatures break into the double digits later this evening. That'll start us off in the mid-80s on Saturday. 105 as we go towards the afternoon. 106 is where we top out in Palm Springs. 108 in Indio. 102 in Joshua Tree, and 82 up in the mountains. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast shows temperatures staying below 110 through the weekend. They will warm next week, but it could become drier starting Wednesday.
Joining us now is John Carrington. He's a CEO of STEM, an AI-driven energy storage provider. Thank you for joining us tonight, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Gino. Good to be here.
All right. Before we talked about battery storage, which is what you're here to talk to us about, I want to talk about the rolling blackouts and the infrastructure in the state of California. Now, for those of us who've been in California for years, we remember a summer of rolling blackouts. Gray Davis was governor. In part, that led to his being recalled. We've had 3 governors since, and clearly nothing was ever done to fix a problem we suffered all those many summers ago. Any idea why it was never dealt with when we could?
Well, I think it's being dealt with. And the reality is we've put a lot more solar onto the grid. And I think the regulators, including Governor Newsom, are trying to figure out how to resolve this problem in particular. But it has been rather extreme. But battery storage is definitely a very strong solution to fixing this. The solar, as you know, goes off when the sun stops shining, and you need a lot of opportunity to soak up all of that solar power during the day when it's actually not in need. And then during the late afternoon periods where people start to go home from their offices, those batteries can be there to support the grid. So that's what we're out doing. And we've been very busy the last week with all these heat and these rolling blackouts, as you can imagine.
Well, I can. And of course, the fire's just sort of compounding the whole problem. But this is the exact same problem we had some 15 years ago. They said at the time, well, we can't deal with it now, but we'll deal with it after this crisis. Obviously, they never did. But we're hearing the same things from the Cal ISO and from all the providers statewide. We'll deal with it after this crisis. And you think that battery storage will be the sort of silver bullet, if you will, so we don't have to go through another summer of rolling blackouts?
Well, here's what I can tell you. Last Friday, we put 50 megawatts of battery storage onto the grid. Now, to put that in numbers from a housing perspective, that's 20,000 homes. That would probably cover all of Palm Springs, maybe part of Palm Desert as well. So that's just our systems on the grid in California that can support that. So I do believe it's a huge component and part of the future to fix this issue. It's more a matter of we got to add more batteries, and there's also regulatory manner that's got to be put in place that can actually utilize this battery more. So we are not allowed to export to the grid, Gino. If we could have delivered 2 or 3 times the amount of energy that we did provide on Friday of last week and have throughout this week.
Is there any logic as to why there would be any laws, rules, or prohibition from providing power to the grid? Why would anybody not want that to happen?
I'm with you. We have a regulatory team constantly discussing that with the CPUC and other leaders of the state of California and other states for that matter. It's a slow-moving process. The more we can prove ourselves like we did in the last week, we believe the more traction we can get on that argument.
How close are you and your company to actually getting the state to let you provide energy into the grid, which seems ludicrous that there'd be any pushback on that at all?
Yeah, well, we're working it every day. Candidly, we've been on that for probably 2 or 3 years now. I'm hoping that the governor and the CPUC, and particularly in light of this environment, will start to engage in these discussions. And I would encourage, building owners, homeowners to contact their local regulators and push for this, because it is a great solution, and we should not be living in a grid system that rivals some of the less emerging countries that we're all familiar with. It's crazy that California would be having grid problems, in my view.
No, because I agree. And that was a thing that I've always found confusing. There seems to be 2 areas, a state that's normally so far ahead of the curve on everything, that mass transit and making sure that our 40 million citizens have electricity no matter what are the 2 things we seem to be, literally, as you referenced, almost a third world country. Why?
Well, we're doing everything we can to help, Gino, and STEM systems and more buildings and batteries technology into residential will only help the cause.
John Carrington, CEO of STEM, an AI-driven energy storage provider. Maybe some hope for the future. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Gino. Bye now.
The most high-profile couple at the center of the college admission scandal has been sentenced. You've probably spent more time sheltering in place from COVID-19 than they'll spend in prison. We'll have a look at their punishment. And we'll have another update on that fire burning in Indio. Our Nico Payne is live on the scene with what firefighters are now saying. Stay with us. And another update on that breaking news story out of Indio. Tamarisk trees have caught fire in North Indio. You may have seen the smoke this evening. Well, Nico has a look at what's happening. Nico, what did they tell you?
That's right, Sarah. We are on Madison Avenue, just off of 42nd Street, and I want to show you this tamarisk fire behind me. It is a joint effort out here, as fire officials do tell me that the fire is on federal land. Now, earlier I did talk to fire officials, and they explained to me what challenges they are up against as they fight this fire.
Water is an extremely, really tough issue. We're having to have our engines drive over to Monroe and Avenue 42 to the nearest fire hydrant. I believe it's probably about 103, 104 degrees right now with, I think the last relative humidity I checked, it was about 45 to 48%. So we use that sun bus so we can rotate our crews in and out, get them rested, hydrated, and get them some rehab before they get them back out there. We're currently rotating our crews every 20 minutes. We're getting them out and into the bus so they can rest and cool off and recover.
And back out here live, you can see the sun bus. They're using that as their cooling center to help bring relief to the firefighters. Fire officials tell me they expect to be here the remainder of the night. As for the cause of the investigation, or as for the cause of the fire, rather, that remains under investigation. Reporting live, I'm Nico Payne. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Nico, thank you for that update. Taking a live look now, courtesy of our Agua Caliente Casino Cam. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett for your AccuWeather forecast. Mike.
Gina, whenever we've got an active fire in the area, the first thing we look for is wind. The good news is we're not seeing a whole lot of it. In fact, today, with the high pressure in the region today, we're not seeing that early switch around to the north and west, which would normally pick those gusts up. Well, it looks like we're going to continue to see some easterly flow moving in. We'll put that into motion. It looks like it's going to be around 9 or 10 o'clock tonight that we'll finally see that switch around to the north and west, and that's generally when we'll see those sustained winds in about the 7 to 12 mile an hour range. That'll put gusts up to possibly 15, 20 miles an hour along the I-10 corridor, and that's exactly where that fire is burning right now. So we'll continue to monitor that through the rest of the night. Breezy, not gusty is what I'm expecting, and of course that ventilation is always welcome as we have very stagnant air out there right now. We saw that on the Agua Cam. Take a look at radar. We did have some storms that popped up. This is a 3-hour loop. I just wanted to show you what happened earlier this afternoon, especially over top of Idlewild. We saw a very powerful storm cell drop some hail and some rain there earlier this afternoon, rained itself out, and then any remnants are being pushed off towards the west as we speak. So it doesn't look like there's any rain chances here in the Coachella Valley. One thing I do want to point out, though, is there was a little bit of lightning associated with that. I'm seeing a lot more of that over my shoulder off into Arizona, and that's going to be an issue for firefighting crews coming up in North and Central California this weekend. The remnants from Genevieve. This was the hurricane that was sitting right off the tip of Cabo about 24 hours ago. Good news is it's dissipated. It's just a post-tropical low at this point, but the moisture will continue to walk and hug the coastline as we go into the weekend. You can see not a lot of moisture in there, and that's not so good. That could fire off some friction and some lightning this weekend right up in that area. In fact, fire weather watches are in place from the Bay Area all the way up to the Oregon state line. So on top of the fires that they're fighting right now, more than 300 of them, we could be tracking some new ones as we go into Saturday and Sunday. Take a look at neighborhood weather right now. As the firefighter was saying, temperatures are in the low 100s, which would be good news if it wasn't for the fact that that humidity is riding in the 40s right now. We'll see that wind switch around as we saw earlier, and that'll give us a little bit of relief tonight. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air. Looks good on paper. Numbers are going to be below 110, but that humidity will drive that feels like temperature well over that level. Tracking some changes next week that are pretty good. We'll take a look and you can decide for yourself. Coming up.
The court hereby sentences the defendant to imprisonment for life.
Life without the possibility of parole. That's the sentence for the former California police officer now known as the Golden State Killer. Joseph DeAngelo confessed to 13 murders and more than 50 rapes. These cases all happened in the 70s and 80s. Victims and family members of victims spoke directly to the man who evaded detectives for decades.
I cannot allow myself to think of all that they endured in death, but we know of the unspeakable horror they suffered. And for what?
I have never thought of myself as a victim, although it's part of my history.
I feel my best revenge is to live my life. The monster has been unmasked and is no longer of any consequence. I am leaving him behind. The nightmare has ended. He is the one forever alone.
Prosecutors initially sought the death penalty, but settled for a life term because of California's moratorium on executions and taking into account D'Angelo's age.
Actress Lori Loughlin and her husband Massimo Giannulli have been sentenced for their involvement in the college admissions scandal. He received 5 months behind bars. She got 2. Both are to report to jail in 90 days. They paid $500,000 to get their daughters into USC as fake crew recruits.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
Deaths from COVID-19 are averaging more than 1,000 a day for 25 consecutive days. The CDC is now projecting nearly 195,000 COVID deaths by September 12th. That's about 3 weeks from now. 19 states are seeing outbreaks on college campuses, now back open in many places. Cases are on the rise in Wyoming, Iowa, and Illinois. Experts report many cases are coming from so-called super spreader events on campuses. We'll be right back after this. Please stay with us.
All right, time for a check of your NBC Palm Springs sports headlines. Well, tonight was supposed to be the start of week 0 for high school football. And of course, we would have had Friday Night Lights for you at 11 o'clock. But that's all been pushed back to January now because of the virus. But there are some schools in parts of the country that have begun practice. And in fact, some are even playing games. Football practice started up Monday at a high school in Kansas. And today, 3 people have tested positive for coronavirus. Now the entire team of 100 players have been quarantined for the next 2 weeks. The district in the area has not yet decided on reopening in-person classes, but the school board is letting sports continue, including high-risk sports such as football. Speaking of football, the Green Bay Packers practice was high energy thanks to fake crowd noise piped into the stadium. The idea was to simulate the atmosphere of a game day as closely as possible. With the ongoing coronavirus pandemic and venues empty of fans, the NFL is toying with the idea of adding ambient noise to make it more exciting. Having watched lots of soccer, at first it was weird because you could hear the echoes in the stadium, but once they added some of that ambient sound, it started to at least feel more like normal times. That's a quick check of sports. Mike standing by with his own ambient sound. Mike.
I've got some ambience of my own. In fact, I got a gorgeous sunset for you. That's what moisture will do for you. A little bit of smoke mixed in there as well. We're going to be talking about conditions across the entire state, including right here in the Coachella Valley when we come back. Welcome back. Well, it's the same thing again. Basically, this has been a very hot, humid week. If there's something that's going for us right now, we finally got that excessive heat warning to expire, but it's still very humid out there. Temperatures today, in fact, fell well short of guidance and well below the average for this time of year. We'll show you that in a moment. Let's take a look at what's happening in the big picture. We do have some changes moving in this weekend that are, well, going to help a little bit. I'll show you exactly what Genevieve is going to do in a moment here, but the excessive heat warning that we had in the Coachella Valley was allowed to expire last night at 10 o'clock. You could hear the cheering across the region here. We still have those excessive heat warnings in place for the high desert out towards Vegas and into the Inland Empire as well. Temperatures running about 100 to 106 there. You mix in some of that humidity, it's going to be uncomfortable across the southwest. Phoenix has an excessive heat watch in place as well. Now, everything that you see in central and northern California has something to do with the smoke. There is an smoke advisory in place for the central portion of I-5 there. So if you're driving up there or towards Fresno, that is an issue. Everything you see in the yellow here is also a smoke advisory because of the fires that are burning. The flow is going up towards the north and east right now. So it's making parts of Nevada and even into Utah feel and smell that smoke. That's what all those issues are. And then what you see here in this tan color is actually a fire weather watch. The reason being that Genevieve will continue to walk up the coast here here. No moisture associated with it, but the instability could fire off some lightning in central and northern California this weekend, adding insult to injury. Over 300 fires burning, and we could be tracking more on Saturday and Sunday if some of that dry lightning sparks new ones. We'll have some updates for you come Monday. Taking a look at the big picture as far as tropical activity goes, Genevieve, again, no longer a threat as far as a tropical storm goes, just walking its way along the Pacific there. TD14 has the potential to become Marco and strengthen as it moves into the Gulf there, and would be joined by Laura, now a tropical storm expected to move over Puerto Rico and Haiti. There are watches and warnings along the Florida Keys, and then this system could ramp up to hurricane status. That would put 2 active storms in the Gulf. That has not happened since 1959. A lot of folks very nervous in the southeast. Take a look at Futurecast here. We saw some storms pop up in the mountains earlier. Could be tracking some moisture, especially up towards the San Bernardinos and San Gabriels early on Saturday morning. And then Futurecast wants to put most of the storm activity up in the San Bernardinos on Saturday afternoon. But I'm not ruling out the potential to see some cumulus and possibly some rain and lightning in our mountains here as well. If you do have some hiking plans, just make sure you factor that in. It's not going to be exactly perfect up there. It's not going to be exactly perfect down here either. We're talking about a 75-degree dew point. That puts minimum relative humidity about 40%, similar to what we saw today. We'll back that off slightly on Sunday, but still not great. The good news is it's trending down as we go towards Tuesday, and long-term models are suggesting that we could finally start to see some drier air moving in on Wednesday. 103 today, again, looked good on paper, but was not particularly pleasant with all that humidity out there. Record for today's date, 117, and we were warm overnight by about 10 degrees as well. 99 currently in Coachella, 87 up in the Yucca Valley, 101 in 29 Palms, comfortable 70 in Big Bear, and 86 up in Idlewild. We saw earlier that easterly flow will switch around between about 9 and 10 o'clock tonight and get us breezy. We'll be back in double digits around 10 o'clock tonight as well. That'll set us up for some mid-80s on Saturday, but look at that, dew points right in the 70s for most of the afternoon, so it's going to be warm and muggy. 106 in Palm Springs, 108 in Indio, 102 in Joshua Tree, and some low 80s up in Big Bear. Mountain storms are possible on Saturday and possibly on Sunday as well. We'll see those temperatures bust above 110 again starting on Monday, but it could become drier starting Wednesday.
Firefighters face weeks of work ahead of them, possibly even months. In the ash and smoke, California farm workers are also still on the job, working in the heat, harvesting crops by hand, trying to stay 1 acre out in front of the fire. Local advocates tell us, though workers are used to working in triple-digit temperatures, the smoke is making conditions much worse across the state.
When we're talking about the California wildfires. So we know farm workers are letting us know that the air quality is very bad. It's difficult to breathe. Some are unsure about what their rights are.
Some of that air coming through from the recent fires here in our county as well. And we've had some farm workers hospitalized.
Advocates stress extreme heats like this heat wave, plus the fires and the pandemic, are underscoring systemic issues that were already in place.
Palm Springs City Council votes to close part of Palm Canyon Drive to vehicle traffic. This will allow restaurants now to expand into the street. This should all take place in about 2 weeks. Some restaurant owners tell us they're concerned about the extra cost and labor that will come with outdoor dining. Mayor Kaur says the city will help where they can.
We'll cover the cost of the K-rails, the barriers that are needed to close streets. And if we need to close lanes or help businesses with parklets, we'll cover those costs of those barriers. We also tell businesses that want to do nicer parklets, if they invest in their own parklet, which could be raised and using parking spots, they can keep it up for at least a year.
The council also discussed ways to help shops expand onto sidewalks as businesses continue to face coronavirus restrictions. But so far, no plans have been finalized there. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Brighter Side of the News is brought to you by Holland RV, located off the I-10 at Washington.
Finally tonight, I want to take a moment to highlight a local songwriter. Shayla Deshawn sends me these really clever videos all the time having to do with local weather. Her most recent one is a parody of Adele's Hello, and she absolutely nailed what this week's been like. Let's take a look.
This summer season has got me steaming, and I mean it literally. Hello, I'm staying home so I won't fry. I'm telling you, this heat wave is drying me out, and I've got to drink water so that I won't pass out. Hello from the inside.
Well played, Shayla. Well played. Hey, if you want to see the video in its entirety, there's a link to it on my Facebook page. And yeah, I have a Facebook page because I'm kind of a big deal. NBC Palm Springs News. We'll see you again tonight at 11.